Michael Woody Obrien. Welcome back. I'm here on the W.A.N.Radio Network and Wide Awake News. I'm Michael Woody Obrien. I'm an investment newsletter writer. WoodyKnowsMarkets.com. My life's work is to get rid of the Federal Reserve. That website is abolishfiatslavery.com. And, of course, I'm also an organic farmer here in the eastern part of West Virginia, where our water is still flowing and still drinkable. Today, the farm website is thepromisedlandfarm.com. I'm happy to welcome back to the show tonight a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, Douglas Newberry. How are you this evening?
Doing good, Woody. How are you?
Good. Now, Doug, you're also an investment guy as well. Tell us about the nature of your investment business real quick.
We build software for retail investors to help them find the right stocks to be trading and that kind of thing. And we do a live broadcast 3 mornings a week for our members where we, mark up the charts and talk about trading and investing strategies.
And what is the website for that business?
InvestingSystems.com. You can check it out.
And tell me, what do you think of markets so far this year? I know we're not very deep in at this point, but what are the S&P 500 and bullion and other tea leaves telling you at this point?
Well, I will tell you, I'm not as bullish as most on the street right now, and I think that, you saw 62%, Woody, of S&P 500 companies came out and negatively warned about their earnings for 2014.
And that's a record. You could go back decades and not find that many companies warning
exactly
that things are not good.
Well, here's the thing, right? What most people don't know is they see the stock market hitting all these highs and stuff. And here's some things to think about. And I'm telling you, you've never heard anybody talk about this. 10, 15 years ago, Woody, there were 12,000 publicly traded companies to choose from. Now there are 7,000. There are not even 5,000 stocks in the Wilshire 5,000 index anymore because there just aren't that many stocks because companies have failed, folded, been acquired, merged. Now we're down to less than 7,000 publicly traded companies. And the companies that are out there have been borrowing money at such low interest rates that they can literally borrow money to buy back their own stock, right? And push the earnings per share up because there are less shares outstanding. And so this is the kind of shenanigans that's coming to a halt because I don't think they're going to continue to be able to borrow at those cheap rates going forward.
Well, certainly not indefinitely. We're definitely at unsustainable interest rates. And I think one of the problems is most of the people who manage money are in the New York and Connecticut area, to a lesser degree in the Washington, D.C. metroplex. And in those local economies where I would say the stolen money is spent pretty freely, the economy is not too bad. But when you get around the rest of the country, when you get more than 200 miles away from New York and Washington, you feel as if you're in the middle of the 1931. And it's interesting to me because every now and then you get to see a little icon of how people in New York don't really see across the bridge. And I was watching today on Bloomberg where we came out with it, just this terrible news about job creation for the month, only 74,000. And I guess the consensus number was 190,000 or so. Yeah. And they had a couple of analysts on Bloomberg with the one Bloomberg host, and they all put up $20 to guess the number, and they were going, 200, 220. One person said 250. And I'm looking at thinking, it's going to be under 100. The weather was terrible in December, and the real economy is rolling over. And sure enough, 74,000, and they were just all shocked because they all live inside this New York bubble where they cannot see that out in the part of the country that is being looted for the benefit of New York and Washington, things are bad and they're getting worse.
Not only do we live in a nation of two economies going on, we actually live in a world of two Wall Streets going on as well, right? Like, you can read the newsletters from the doomers and the gold bugs and all those guys who were telling you that, it can't go any higher. But they've been saying that for 4 years, 5 years, right? They always say that. And yet the market continues to go higher. And what we say in our broadcast is, look, all that stuff that those guys write is technically true, right? And all of the things that we know about sound, prosperous economics does not apply to the environment in which we live, right?
No, because
but that doesn't mean the market can't still go up.
There's no such thing as organic markets anymore.
Right.
No matter what,
it's all cooked.
It's all cooked, and it's cooked in both directions. The level that the S&P 500 is only there because of quantitative easing, and you see the opposite of that is true. I've been banging the table for months that we've been coming to a bottom in the price of coffee, because coffee was back. The coffee beans were selling what they were selling for in 1994, when there was 1/200th of the amount of money that was floating around the world. You can't have these unorganic, unsustainable prices last forever. Every Ponzi scheme comes to an end. Now, since you mentioned bullion, I want you to look at your charts for a second for gold and for silver, and tell me, do you think we've seen the low in this cycle? It looks like we have a nice ascending W pattern here. My gut instinct tells me that we may have the worst behind us. What say you?
Well, it's funny because about 4 or 5 months ago, I drew a target out in the future where I told folks I would get interested in gold. And gold finally dipped down and just bottom ticked into my little target circle there. And here's the thing. Gold is definitely in a downtrend, the 10-week, the 30-week, both facing down. We've got a really strong trend line that we've been rejected at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. We got to break that trend line or we're not going higher. That trend line right now is at about 120 on the GLD, which roughly translates into 1,200 or so for gold. And if you can't break the trend line, you're not going higher. It's that simple.
Well, we're getting awful close in gold to that 50-day moving average now, 12.49.35 on spot gold. We got within about a half a buck of that or so today. I think we are going to get through that next week, and I don't want to say it's going to be straight up for here, but I have a very strong sense that just like coffee, there's a certain price to which it is that you can't get much lower. And one of the reasons is in mining is we're at a point, at least with the gold and for most of the silver miners, is it doesn't make any sense for somebody to mine gold at $1,200 when it's costing them $1,400 to get it out of the ground.
Exactly. So, here's the thing. The gold market, Woody, as you know, we can get into the fancy talk of the rehypothecations and stuff, but never have I seen a market as cooked as the gold market.
Well, to me, the question is there's, and we had a story this week about the Germans have now repatriated 37 tons of their 600 tons of gold a year after they asked for the 600 tons, and they're not getting back the same bars they gave. There really is this question with gold of there's how much is actually in existence in the world, and then there's how much people think there is based on the paper.
Based on how much title they have to it.
Yeah. And
right? So, there's 100 people out there with a claim on every ounce of gold in the world.
Well, I know the gold that I have in my physical possession, there's only one claim on it, and that's my wife.
Well, see, that's the thing, right? If you've got physical gold, you've got something.
Yeah.
If you've got paper gold or receipts for gold or vault receipts for gold, you're wishing in one hand. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're all going to find out in coming months and years how this is all going to pan out, because one thing's for sure, it certainly can't stay the same. And one of the things that I always think that happens when you look at financials and markets, that things would used to make sense in the past now don't make sense at all anymore. And one of the ones that I know you want to talk about is the subject of income inequality. 20 years ago, I knew what income inequality was, but now I'm beginning to think that nobody knows what income inequality is, because we can't parse out in these average income statistics people who are earning very high income because of their access to capital, especially their access to
0% interest capital.
0% interest capital. It's almost like you can't compare a farmer to Jamie Dimon, because Jamie Dimon can
the
conjure
farmer
money into
doesn't have
existence.
Illuminati cufflinks.
No, he certainly does not. He might be a Mason, though. You never know. But it is one of those things that you when you look at how much income is derived in banking and mortgages, which really ought to just be called what it is. It's crime income. It is proceeds of a crime. There's no question. It's proceeds of a fraud. An act of fraud is what it is. I think the part that always has gotten in the back of my mind, and I had an interesting conversation this week with someone who was a career teacher, and really kind of got them to their heads spinning around their shoulders, because of course this is one of these people who says, education is everything. Education is, the reason, if you go to college, you make $1 million more than someone who doesn't go to college. And of course I was there to say, well, look, first, that's baloney. Because when they do that, they're only counting people who are employed and not people who are self-employed. If you count people who are self-employed and count their real income, not what they tell the government about, in fact, the people who go to college aren't making more money. And when they count those people that go to college, they're not counting the cost to go to college, the income that they gave up for going out to college. They're not doing a real cradle to grave comparison with
right. It's not apples to apples. Well, but obviously it's institutes of higher learning who conduct these studies, right? Like, look, there is an organized cabal of media, education, government, and non-governmental entities that are putting out enough BS, bona fide BS, to keep everybody running on the treadmill of debt till we all turn 100 and die. And that's it. It's all BS. Literally everything you hear out of the mainstream media, every government statistic, all of these studies about everything coming out of these big Ford foundations and all these other, non-governmental agencies, it's all BS, man. And you know what? Quite frankly, I think people are hip to the fact that it's all BS. I mean, look at the ratings of Congress and the media and all these other people, even higher institutions. I mean, look, shouldn't the taxpayers of every state virtually demand that their state universities, every class gets put online video for free? The technology is there. It's cheap. Demand that every class from your state university be online for free for the people.
Oh, well, but if they did that, you couldn't get people to pay $20,000 for it then.
Well, see, that's the thing. There's going to be a revolution in education because people have figured out it's just a scam. My God, they get a mortgage and they don't even get the house.
Well, to me, there's always this element, this belief that education is the way that you have economic growth and the way that you succeed in life. To me, this is fundamentally a flawed argument, and the reason is because all of my life experience tells me it's about ambition. It's about your willingness to do big things. It's about your willingness to think outside the box. I know lots of highly educated people who are poor and highly educated people who are failures, and the reason there is they have no vision, they have no ambition. I'm always reminded of somebody I went to high school with who got a law degree and sat in the Fish and Game Commission of the Pennsylvania government and could tell me, when his breaks were and how much his pay was. And he didn't really achieve anything in life. And when he said to me, I don't know how you can work as a financial broker, those people expect results. And I said, well, wait a minute, you work for the taxpayers. Don't you think we expect results? And he said, no, and that's why you'll never get them. There are people who just want to go to their job, do as little as possible, come home, have dinner, watch sports, and watch dancing shows. They don't have any ambition to change the world. And frankly, in some ways, I think we probably should be grateful for that, because if ambition was equally distributed, we'd have lower incomes for everybody. It'd be a much more competitive economy than it is now.
It would be much more robust, though. I mean, here's the thing. It's like those are the people who are out there making something happen. Everybody else is just along for the ride. I swear that, I mean, they're a bunch of dead weight, quite frankly, right?
And you know what? If you don't have that ambition to do more, you don't really have the right to complain about people who do. I've always seen those bumper stickers that say, don't share my money, share my ambitions, share my work ethic.
Right. Here's the thing.
And these are things that a teacher can't teach you. And
I've always considered organized education in the same category as organized religion. I mean, you can be educated and you can be a spiritual person, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need a college degree or to go to someone's church. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's almost a libertarian aspect to this, which is to say, if the society at large thinks that education is a good thing, that's one thing. If the society at large wants to impose that belief on a cattle prod with someone else, with everybody's money, that's something else. Hey, you know what? If you want to go to high school and get C's and get out and not get a serious job and not have a very prosperous life, knock yourself out. Go ahead and do it. I don't want the society or schools browbeating you to do something different. If your pursuit of happiness is the lowest common denominator, why in the world should we have taxpayer expenditures to convince you otherwise? If you don't have the ambition to want to do big things in your life, to me, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, here's the thing. When I did my year-end show, we like to do our predictions for 2014. And one of the predictions I told them was that income inequality is going to be the political issue of 2014. And the reason for that is because Obamacare is going to continue to blow up in the Democrats' face every day from now until Election Day. It's just never going to stop. It's the gift that keeps on giving in terms of political damage to the left, right? And so they're going to change all the talking points away from that to income inequality, and those awful Republicans, they don't want to raise the minimum wage, and those awful Republicans, they want to cut food stamps, and those awful Republicans, they don't believe in equal pay for equal work, and those awful Republicans, they want to do away with all your entitlement programs and throw Granny off the cliff and, yada, yada. And that's going to be the big political issue. And in my mind, income inequality ought to be a big political issue, but the way it's going to be covered and the way that it should be covered are going to be completely different.
You mentioned Obamacare. We have a couple of minutes here before the break because I want to put to you my newest theory of Obamacare, which is it's such a cluster F. It's such a disaster. Its rollout has got so many problems. I'm actually beginning to think that this is like a fighter taking a dive. I think that this thing is designed to fail. And
sure,
the reason
to create
is
just enough chaos to push us into single pay.
That's exactly correct. That I think, and to me, if first, obviously, I don't think there ought to be any government involvement in healthcare whatsoever. All they do is raise prices and make a mess of it. But frankly, if we had a single payer plan where things that happen to you that were not of your control, an act of God, you get leukemia or something, you'd have full coverage for it. And then you have to go buy insurance for all the stupid things that you do to yourself. You weigh 400 pounds and have a heart attack, well, that one's on you. You take drugs, that one's on you. You get a sexually transmitted disease, that one's on you. But
isn't a pregnancy a sexually transmitted disease?
I like to think of pregnancy as a lack of understanding of mathematics. It's funny. I went out to dinner with my wife tonight, and our favorite little organic place was closed. We had to go to another place, which I don't like to go to because on Friday nights it's the people coming in with their 2 or 3 year old kids, and I looked at her. We've been married 12 years, and I'm in my middle 50s now. We don't have any children together, and I said, it really is a different thing to be married when you're older and you have no children and no expectation of children. I said it's a completely different dynamic than these young people who are in their 20s raising children. Your entire life is organized around them. And I said, having done that before, it's almost like I want to say when I see people that have 2 and 3, I guess you didn't learn from the first one. Because to me, I had one child, and boy, that convinced me in a hurry not to do that again. Because it's parenthood is a horribly difficult thing, and I would say it's like a swimming pool. You just keep throwing money into it, and the pit just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, we're going to head into a break here in a minute, but when we come back, we're absolutely not going to talk about Chris Christie. This is a Chris Christie free zone, but we are going to talk about the Robert Gates book. We're going to talk about Dennis Rodman a little bit. We're going to talk about Obama's naming a former head of the Bank of Israel as the Fed vice chairman. And I want to talk about wood stoves and the EPA when we come back. I'm Michael Woody O'Brien, your host. This is the AbolishFiatSlavery.com hour here on Reds Radio Network and Wide Awake News. We really appreciate you hanging in here with us tonight. And while we're on the break, listen to the ads, buy some stuff from the sponsors, but also go to Facebook and friend me there. I am the only Woody O'Brien on Facebook. Here comes the music for the break. We'll be right back in a minute.
Heart-related health problems affect millions of people each year. Maybe you're one of the many who suffer from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, or clogged arteries. There is a solution that doesn't involve expensive prescription drugs that only mask the problem and leave you with horrible side effects. If you are ready to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, then you're ready for Heart and Body Extract from Healthy Hearts Club. Heart and Body Extract has a 23-year proven track record of using certified organic herbs that make up an excellent formula to balance and support the heart and circulatory system. In as little as 2 weeks, you can feel amazing results when your 2-month supply of Heart and Body Extract today. Call 1-866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
If you're taking 1, 2, 5, or more nutritional supplements every day, please stop. Simplify your supplementation with Bio Superfood, the most advanced nutritional whole food supplement you can buy. Men, women, children, and even Olympic athletes the world over have discovered Bio Superfood from BioAge.com and now take just one nutritional supplement instead of many. The Bio Superfood formulas are whole food products composed with 4 of the most nutrient-dense algae species found on Earth. Bio Superfood for the brain helps with focus, memory, clarity, and mood. Bio Superfood is a strong defender in the fight against radiation exposure. Bio Superfood has 0 toxicity, is safe, and has no contraindications whatsoever. Learn more and order your Bio Superfood formulas at BioAge.com. That's spelled BIOAGE.com, BioAge.com. Or you can call 877-288-9116. That's 877-288-9116. BioAge, the age of advanced organics.
Hello, this is Ty Bollinger, author of the best-selling book, Cancer, Step Outside the Box. I want you to know some very important information. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan requested that Carnivora be sent directly to the White House at a time when only the president contained this world-class healer. Now, 27 years later, Carnivora capsules are used around the world to keep people healthy. Now you can protect yourself and your loved ones in this age of superbugs with 17 naturally occurring compounds that instinctively respond to abnormal cells only without harming a single normal cell. If you want to stay healthy, now's your chance to literally wake up your critical immune cells to attack harmful invaders that don't belong in your body. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY or order from carnivora.com. That's carnivora.com. That's 1-866-836-8735, 1-866-VENUS-FLY, or visit carnivora.com. Protect your immune system. It's the only one you've got.
Hey, I'm Woody O'Brien, your host. This is the AbolishFiatSlavery.com hour here on Rents Radio Network and Wide Awake News, sitting in for my good friend, buddy, and pal, Charlie McGrath. What a great guy. What a wonderful example of what a U.S. military veteran should be. Someone who didn't just serve the country honorably as a trigger puller back in the 90s for the first Gulf War, but somebody who's a real patriot fighting to try and save the country. Hey, well, I'm here tonight with friend of the show and good friend Doug Newberry. When we were going to the break, Doug, I was saying we have to bring up this subject of Robert Gates.
Well, hang on. On your tribute to Charlie, dude, I got to say, nothing gives me more hope for our country than wide awake veterans.
That's so true. And I tell you what, wide awake veterans scare this government to death.
Absolutely. They're the reason for the Patriot Act.
But, I had an occasion a while ago to, I sell a lot of firewood here at the farm. And it never seems to fail that for some reason that firemen and police officers all seem to love to burn firewood or have these outdoor wood burners. And I had the occasion to meet a Washington, D.C. police officer who lived out here in the countryside and commuted in. And I got talking to him about Adam Kokesh, who I guess next Friday we're going to find out whether Adam Kokesh is going to spend up to 6 years in jail for having loaded a shotgun in Washington, D.C., something the Supreme Court said was legal to do. But I was blown away by what this officer told me, which was first that if people could openly carry firearms in the District of Columbia, there'd be a lot less crime. But the second thing is how the mayor and the heads of the police department are terrified of Adam Kokesh. And this idea that he can raise 10,000 people to walk down the street with loaded guns in Washington, D.C., something even I don't believe is true. But
I was telling somebody the other day, if Alex Jones was Adam Kokesh, the revolution, the shooting would already be started.
Yeah, it probably would. It probably would. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Adam Kokesh. Do you have a prediction of that, whether he's going to serve any time or not?
I don't know what the man is thinking, dude. I mean, Adam, I remember I interviewed Adam once back when he was running for Congress. And, he was a honorable dude. And then, his YouTube channel sort of went off the chain. He had his little stint over there on RT, but his YouTube channel went off the chain. Next thing I know, I'm watching over there. He's sitting in the middle of his bed doing bong hits. And, I mean, dude, if you want to be taken seriously, then you want to be taken seriously. And if you want to get high, go ahead and get high. But, in the middle of your show, doing bong hits in the middle of your bed and then doing this crazy stunts in D.C. and really trying to get himself arrested. I mean, look, my guess is this. If you go looking for trouble, you will find it. Yeah.
I think if his goal is to be a martyr and be in prison like
Mandela,
yeah.
He's the American Mandela.
If he wants to be the American Mandela, he's certainly on that path. I mean, he's a friend of mine. I certainly like and admire him. But I have to tell you, the thing I think is most interesting is people who are in my Facebook and other people who I know. They are universally critical about one thing for him, which I find it's a very curious thing, is that he's one of these post-traumatic stress disorder veterans who gets a disability check every single month, and that doesn't really bother me. But for a lot of libertarians, this is a credibility thing to say how much you hate the government, how much you want to overthrow it. In the meantime, you're getting a direct deposit from them monthly for something that people in wars since the revolution never got paid for the horrible things that they did and saw. I always say if every single person who had post-traumatic stress disorder from any cause got a check, we'd be broke next week. Because we've all seen things that, we all have things in our head that you can't unring the bell.
Here's the funny thing about this. I think the last time I was on Charlie's show, I shocked him when I said, dude, that I love the New World Order. Right? And he's like, what? What? You love the New World Order? And I'm like, yeah. I said, dude, think about all the executive orders that have been passed down, right? Like the president can take control of the communications networks. The president can take control of industries. The president can take control of all facilities. The president can conscript you to do labor.
Well, how about he can take control of all farms?
All of it. All of it. The food, everything, right? Every vehicle, all the energy, all of it, right? So here's the thing, right? Those powers in the hands of a real patriot could set things straight, right? You could say, well, here's the thing. According to executive order number such and such, and I declare an emergency in the food right now, and I'm breaking up all these big agribusiness companies. I'm outlawing GMO food by executive fiat and, this and that and the other. Oh, by the way, because of, systemic deception of the American people over the last 50 years, I'm breaking up all the big media companies and selling off their assets to entirely new sets of ownership, and we're busting this mega mess up. And, oh, by the way, the military has surrounded Manhattan, and no banker will be left behind. These people are financial terrorists who will be treated as such, shipped off to Guantanamo Bay upon their, arrest.
I do think
They've created an opportunity for a dictator to come in and do whatever he wants. And if he's a patriot and he wants to set things right, they've given him the tools to do it.
Yeah, well, I don't think the Republicans and Democrats are going to elect any patriots anytime soon. But I have to tell you that there's a part of me that is a great doubter of some of these executive orders, especially the one that says the president's going to have, power over farms. And I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? Farming is a rural, real spread out kind of thing. When someone says the government's going to take over every farm, saying that they are doing that and actually doing it and having the manpower required to do that, these are two very different things.
It's like chaining an elephant to a lawn chair.
Yeah.
As long as he thinks he's chained to it, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you. I talked to somebody the other day who is a real active, patriot, and his organization actually gets stuff done. They have a lot of really cool initiatives. They wrote some draft legislation called the Balance of Powers Act that they're getting passed in various states around the country that form a committee in the state legislatures to examine every federal law as to its constitutionality and then fight against it if it's unconstitutional. And it's pretty cool. But they're doing a lot of interesting things. Anyway, he was talking to me the other day. I said, look, here's where we are. It's too late to vote and it's too early to shoot. Now, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, I really do believe that it is true. The idea that we're ever going to have meaningful reform through the ballot box or through elections or politics, I think history shows that real revolution never occurs through a democratic process. It occurs when 1 to 4% of the population take on the 1% of the population who is running the show and the thugs that they hire to protect them, while the other 95% of the population sits at home and watches.
Well, here's the thing, right?
The truth is that the majority will follow anybody with a gun. Hey, we got to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about Dennis Rodman. We're going to talk about this book from Bill Gates, and we're going to talk about the EPA trying to legislate wood-burning stoves out of existence. I'm Michael Woody O'Brien, abolishfiatslavery.com, and we'll be right back.
Scientists in England have succeeded in stabilizing the time-honored substance in garlic that destroys harmful bacteria, viruses, molds, yeast, and fungus. This all-natural microbe killer is called Allicin C, and it's now available to you in 100% vegetarian capsules only on the New Earth page at rense.com. This powerful broad-spectrum antimicrobial agent is harmless to friendly bacteria and has been concentrated to equal an astonishing 35 cloves of garlic in each vegetarian capsule. Think about it. The antibacterial, antiviral strength of 35 odorless cloves of garlic in just one capsule. Allicin C is so effective it even destroys superbug MRSA in test after test. Allicin C is truly an incredible advance in natural medicine, and with the threats of bacterial and viral diseases and pandemics growing, no home should be without it. Learn more and order Allicin C on the New Earth page at rents.com.
Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a question for my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. What do they know that we don't? Insiders and a who's who list of elite have made it crystal clear that we are headed for catastrophe, putting out warning after warning, urging people to batten down the hatches. Billionaire George Soros has recently been dumping stocks and at the same time acquiring millions in gold. In fact, in a recent interview, he was quoted as saying, "I'm not here to cheer you up. The situation is as serious and difficult as I've experienced in my career." Out of control government deficit spending and a Federal Reserve that's only solution seems to be print more fiat currency will lead to a weaker dollar and massive inflation on necessity items such as energy and food. If you have wealth to protect, please visit my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. Gabe Elton and the folks at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion have many Wide Awake News customers because they're honest, they're fair, and they won't sell you paper promises or product they do not have. Call Gabe Elton at 800-552-4109. That number again, 800-552-4109, or visit them online at austincoins.com.
Make a promise, take a vow, trust your feelings, it's easy now. Understand the voice within and feel
let's keep talking about that.
already beginning.
And we are back. I'm your host, Michael Woody O'Brien. This is the AbolishFiatSlavery.com hour here on Reds Radio Network and Wide Awake News. Our guest tonight, the always inimitable Douglas Newberry. And Doug, we have to get to some of these other subjects. Let's talk about the Robert Gates book, where he says that Obama didn't have a passion for his plan in Afghanistan. What say you about this book and Gates' comments?
You know, here's the thing. Robert Gates has worked at the highest level of government for, 40 years, right? I don't know that I can trust anything the man says. I mean, I would love to think that I lived in a country where somebody served at the highest level of government for 40 years, and I would automatically and as a matter of course, without, if second thought, say, thank you for your service. But when I look at some of the things that our government has done for the last 40 years, right, and the way they've behaved themselves, and he's been right up there at the top and letting it happen. Look, he's the guy who let it happen when Hillary and Obama and none of them had any enthusiasm for the war. They're increasing the surge. They have no faith in their strategy. They send 30,000 more troops. Dude, that is just despicable. And to let it happen and wait until he retired and write a book is even more despicable.
Yeah, to me, I think that this is all about cowardice. These people who are in these rooms and see this horrible stuff going on, and they know that other people are going to die as a result of it, where they don't have the stones to say, fuck this, I'm out, walk out on the White House lawn and say, this guy's an asshole. He doesn't believe in what it is he's doing. That at the time the crime occurs, they're not screaming bloody murder. That's always the part that bothers me about these tell-alls. Hey, you know what? It would have been a really nice idea as if you'd have told us when it was happening. It doesn't do any good, and people die because you went along. And to me, it really is one of these, you go along to get along, and then you somehow sell a book later with the things you should have said at the time. You know what? Go find a golf course, chase a white ball around, and shut up. That's really the way that I feel about this. Now we got to talk about another shut up subject, and that is Dennis Rodman. Every time Dennis Rodman goes to North Korea, the American media wants to paint Dennis Rodman as a drunken lunatic, and he very well may be.
Oh,
and
they
want to paint the North Korean leader as a lunatic who somehow loves basketball, but fed his uncle to a bunch of hungry dogs. And you know what? I don't really know what the truth is in any of this North Korea stuff, but I do know this. Whatever the American government and the American media tell me about Dennis Rodman and North Korea, I expect it's probably wrong. Because all we ever hear is about how terrible and horrible this country is. And you know what? Maybe they are. But at the end of the day, I think Dennis Rodman has more credibility about what's going on in North Korea than the State Department or the media.
Well, here's the thing, dude. When I hear stuff on the mainstream media and it's anything other than sports or weather, I have no confidence in it whatsoever. And even sports and weather, I have my doubts. So, I mean, if they're telling me anything about some other country, I mean, dude, well, Woody Obrien wants to ask me, what is the word of a liar worth?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That's the old Willie Nelson song. What is the word of a liar worth? And the answer is nothing.
Exactly. What am I supposed to think when the mainstream media tells me anything?
And you know, I think a perfect example of it's not just that the mainstream media lies and tells you things that isn't true. My wife often gets frustrated when we watch the news together that I'm constantly changing the channel. And I would say, that's not news. That's not news. There's so many things that are on the news that really aren't news. And there are things that should be news.
Well, it's infotainment is what it is.
Yeah. Like, for example, Obama has now nominated Stanley Fischer to be the vice chairman of the Federal Reserve. And this guy is the ex-head of the Bank of Israel. He's another one of these high officials in the U.S. government who has a dual citizenship. And this is always astounding to me that the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, which is, I believe, 12 people, it's always 10 sons of Israel, a black guy and a woman. And a woman. Yeah. How can the media complain about the lack of diversity in American institutions when Jews make up 3 or 4% of the U.S. population, and they make up 90% of the central bank? They can't find an Irish guy who's a criminal banker, or an Italian guy who's a criminal banker, or a German guy. This is the least.
Certainly, you can find a criminal banker from Mexico.
This is the least diverse institution in America.
This scandal's even worse than that, right? As if that's not bad enough. But here's the kick. Are you ready for this?
Go.
The first article that I read about this was over at Yahoo. And it was a couple of, I guess, maybe 6 weeks ago. And it said that Fisher was going to be nominated as the vice chairman of the Fed. And it talked a little about him. And his quote was, now get this, he resigned his post as the chairman of the Bank of Israel 6 months ago. And he was told at the time, he says, not to accept any new positions for 6 months. 6 months later, lo and behold, he's appointed to be vice chairman of the Fed. So my first question to him at his very first press conference is, who told him that?
Yeah.
I want to know who told him 6 months ago not to look for a new job because, you know. When you find that person, you find one of the string pullers, or connection to the string puller.
Yeah, I want to know why it is in a country full of criminal bankers, we can't even find a domestic criminal banker. And the other thing is, too, is...
Come on. Out of all the criminal bankers in this country, you had to go all the way to Israel to find one?
And is his vice chairmanship of the Federal Reserve going to be looking out for the United States of America, or is his loyalty still with Israel?
I think you must be some sort of anti-Semite, radical terrorist to even suggest that it's somehow improper that...
Now, can I say something?
3% of the people can control 99% of the banks.
If you go to Boston into a firehouse or a police precinct, 90% of the guys that are in there are going to be Irish, black, or Italian. And I'd be the first one to tell you that creates an environment of non-diversity that's a bad thing for the people who live in Boston. When you have these institutions that are run by people who think the same way, they went to the same schools, they know the same people, they live in the same bubble. That's
where corruption comes from right there.
It really is. It's the good old boys network to the extreme. Now, I don't know how cold you were recently down there in in Florida. But I had to tell you, here in West Virginia, it was colder than a lot of places. But I'm almost dumbfounded, Doug, to read these stories now as Americans are practically freezing to death. The EPA is trying to almost criminalize the use of wood stoves for people to heat their houses. Now, to me, this is so ridiculous because more people ought to be heating with wood, and the simple reason is because trees organically die. They fall to the ground. They're damaged by storms, and they fall to the ground. And you either use that wood for some good purpose, like creating heat, or
making furniture,
or making furniture. And I've certainly had trees that we've cut here at the farm to do both, but otherwise it just falls to the ground. It rots. It gets termites in it. It molts into nothing. Doesn't do any good for anyone. And every time a tree dissolves into nothing or gets taken over by termites, that's a barrel of oil we have to buy from Saudi Arabia. And to me, the idea that the government, at a time we're busy, the good thing about the cold weather is it's certainly helping destroy the last ounce of credibility that Al Gore has. But what a stupid thing, as we all live in places of the country where millions of cords of wood sit rotting, to say, well, you can't possibly use those because somehow it's damaging to the environment. Give me a break.
Well, let me just tell you, this is all part of the big master plan with Agenda 21. It's to get control of all energy sources and restrict their use, right? Because when you do that, you've got a virtual lock on the people, all of them, all the time. If they have no energy, they can't really do much. And I don't know how much you've dug into Agenda 21, Woody, but it is probably one of the most sinister things you've ever seen in your life. And you can't believe how far along they are. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, I know one thing, and that is that when you heat with wood, there are no utility taxes, there's no utility commissions, there's no government agency out there charging you a penny every time you swing an axe and split a piece of wood and put it into a wood burner. And I always say, government hates anything for which it is they are not the pimp. Government hates gambling until they start the lottery, and there's something in it for them.
They hated marijuana until they could tax it at 30%.
Hey, yeah, real quick before we go, let's talk about Rocky Mountain High. Poor John Denver didn't live to see this. Tell me what
my guess is he's enjoying it just the same.
What do you think about Colorado doing this? Is it going to succeed? Is it going to spread?
I think yes. You don't put the genie back in the bottle, as we've seen with any number of things. But I'll tell you, what I think is going to be a difficult thing to manage is, perception across states. Look, every kid in America knows it's illegal to recreationally get high in Colorado and Washington State now. And they're going to think, what the hell's wrong with your state, right? And it's just something whose time has come. The drug war is a total failure. I mean, do people ruin their lives with drugs? Yes. Is the drug war the way to fight it? No. You just can't win that way. And, the big problem I have is what are we going to do with all the unemployed people from the prison industrial complex, who the lawyers and the judges and the rehab people and all the people who are overseeing the prisons full of pot smokers. I mean,
they're going to be working at dispensaries and grow operations and be truck drivers delivering the marijuana, and maybe there'll be there's a lot of these marijuana stocks now. A lot of them are penny stocks.
I will say this. Hang on, before I come across as very pro marijuana. I'm not really pro the edible marijuana, right? Like the cookies and the brownies and all that stuff. And the reason is, you smoke marijuana, you kind of feel it right away, right? But if you eat marijuana, you're like, well, that didn't do anything. And you eat some more, and that didn't do anything. And you eat some more, and that didn't do anything. Next thing you know, you're 6 cookies in.
Yeah.
And we can get dangerous after that.
Well, there's the music, so it's time for us to go. Hey, Doug, very thank you for making this. Tell us your website again.
Thanks, Woody. See you.
I'm putting up next week.
Bombs on the buses, bikes, roads, inside your market, your shops, your clothes. My dad, he's got a lot of fear, I know, but enough pride inside, nothing let that show. My brother had a book he would hold with pride, a little red cover with a broken spine on the back. He hand wrote a quote inside: when the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling for nightly news to be played. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like what did he say?
Oxygen. It's nature's oldest therapy and plays an essential role in destroying viruses, bacteria, mold, yeast, and fungus, and keeping the human body healthy and strong. Now, you can give your body and your immune system a mega boost of disease-fighting oxygen with all-natural Oxy-C. With so many people now leading a sedentary indoor lifestyle, most are in a chronic state of oxygen deprivation, which sets up a perfect environment for disease, general fatigue, and a host of other symptoms. Oxy-C is yours in simple, convenient capsules. Nothing to mix, nothing to hassle with. Take it with juice or water anytime. Feel a cold or flu approaching? Have no energy or spark anymore? Try all-natural Oxy-C and prepare to be amazed. Oxy-C is only available from New Earth Health Solutions at rinse.com. Look for the New Earth banner at rinse.com.
In 2007, one man, Mike Dillard, made 5 predictions which forecasted the 2008 economic crisis and the pending Eurozone collapse. 3 brand new, shocking, must-watch videos with predictions for the coming year. www.the3videos.com. Over the past year, Mike Dillard has helped thousands of ordinary people create and recover wealth by tapping into the black box investing strategies the big banks don't want you to know about. www.the3videos.com. As the European banking system implodes and governments collapse at breakneck speeds, the next 12 months will be the most anticipated and important months in modern human history. This will make 2008 look like a walk in the park. Everyone will be affected. Go to www.the3videos.com now. Learn how to prepare your family and prosper during the global financial collapse.
You're listening to the Rinse Radio Network, nationwide and worldwide on the net and at rinse.com.